The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, a glittering sea that no one could ever hope to cross on foot. Yet among the billions of shining lights, the great palace of the Empress floated like a jewel, orbiting the gas giant Clithar. Its towers of crystal and steel shimmered under the distant suns, and within its domed halls, delegates from thousands of worlds gathered, each hoping for the favor of the ruler who held the balance of the galaxy in her hands. 80,000 representatives had come. Every imaginable species, from towering beings with transparent skin to creatures that seemed woven from smoke and fire, had arrived to show their skill, their art, their might. Ships carrying wonders that no human had ever seen floated above the palace, their hulls humming with energy and strange, impossible geometry. Everyone was prepared to impress. Everyone, that is, except the human. Captain Alex Mercer stepped off his small, unremarkable ship onto the polished platform of the palace. His uniform was plain earth gray, slightly scuffed at the knees. No one had polished it to shine. No one had adorned it with lights or holographic displays. To the other delegates, he seemed small, almost invisible, and he welcomed it. The moment he walked in, whispers began. Tentacles twitched, eyes widened, wings quivered. A being with 6 arms, each ending in delicate filaments that glowed faintly, leaned toward its companion and hissed in a language full of clicks and whistles. The human, he came without gifts. He dares to enter the court unprepared. He would observe, learn, and wait. The grand hall itself was unlike anything on Earth. Its floors were clear and reflective, showing the swirling gases of Clithar below. Crystalline columns rose like trees of light, and in every corner, servants moved with careful precision, attending to every need of the delegates. At the far end of the hall, the Empress' throne floated on a platform of shimmering energy. She herself was a vision that defied description. Her form shifted subtly, like liquid light, and her eyes held the knowledge of 1,000 worlds. Delegates moved forward one by one, presenting their wonders. A delegation of crystalline beings created a symphony of light and sound that danced across the room. Another offered a weapon capable of reducing moons to dust, demonstrating it with precision that made some of the crowd shiver. Yet with each display, Alex remained in the background, silent, waiting. It was not that he had nothing to offer. He simply understood something none of the other delegates seemed to grasp. They were performing. They were trying to impress, and the Empress, he suspected, would see through all of it. He watched as a delegation of 6-limbed creatures unfurled a massive tapestry that depicted the history of their entire civilization. The threads glimmered with colors that could not exist in human vision, moving as if alive. Crowds gasped. Alex nodded politely. The Empress leaned forward slightly, watching the display, but her attention flicked elsewhere in moments, scanning the hall. A soft vibration shook the platform. One of the floating stage segments supporting the Empress' throne shuddered, a minor technical glitch, unnoticed by all but a few. Before anyone could react, Alex stepped forward. He quickly assessed the energy conduits beneath the platform, twisting a few connections with tools he always carried. In a matter of seconds, the vibration stopped. The platform stabilized. No one had noticed who had fixed it except the Empress. Her eyes lingered on him briefly, curious. Alex returned to the back of the hall, pretending to adjust his sleeves. The whispers resumed, louder this time. "Did you see that?" a winged creature asked its neighbor. "He just fixed the throne without anything. It must be some trick." Another created a garden of flowers that sang in harmony, their songs evoking memories of entire civilizations. Yet Alex walked among them with quiet confidence. He asked questions, simple ones about materials, propulsion, or energy sources. And always he listened. In one corner, a group of aliens was having trouble coordinating their demonstration. Their massive holographic projection of a distant galaxy kept flickering, and the audience was growing restless. Alex approached. "Try syncing the pulse rate here," he suggested, pointing to a small control panel. "It looks like your timing is slightly off. If you adjust this, the projection will remain stable." The projection stabilized, and the audience erupted in applause. Alex merely smiled faintly and moved on. He did not seek recognition. That, he thought, was how humans were different. They acted, adapted, and moved on. No show was necessary to prove value. By the time the first day of presentations ended, the whispers had turned into discussions. The alien delegations were baffled. 80,000 of them had arrived prepared, polished, and rehearsed. Each had a plan to impress the Empress. Yet here was a single human who had done nothing of the kind, and already he had drawn her attention in ways none of them could understand. At dinner, the hall became even more chaotic. Floating tables carried foods that shifted shape according to the diner's taste. Beverages glowed with colors that corresponded to mood. Delegates laughed, argued, and plotted. Alex sat quietly at a simple table reserved for him, sampling the food with curiosity but no expectation. He listened to the conversations, picking up snippets of alien languages, observing gestures, and noting the priorities of each species. A creature with scales like liquid metal approached him. Its voice rippled in tones that humans could barely comprehend. "Human, do you not fear them? 80,000 trying to impress." "I am here to understand." "What do you mean?" Already the seeds of curiosity had been planted in the minds of others, even if they did not realize it. When the evening finally drew to a close, the delegates retired to their quarters, exhausted from a day of performances, strategy, and nerves. Alex walked to his small ship, quiet and alone. He looked up at the stars, thinking of Earth, of the millions of people back home who would never believe he had walked among such beings today. He also thought of the Empress, who had watched him, not his display, not his spectacle, but him. She had noticed the calm efficiency, the quiet intelligence. That, Alex knew, was far more valuable than any weapon or song or artwork the other delegates had displayed. As he settled in for the night, a gentle vibration came through the floor, an energy pulse from the palace above, subtle and precise. Alex smiled. The first day had ended. The competition had begun, and already without trying, he had made his mark. Somewhere in the grand hall, among tens of thousands of alien competitors, whispers carried a single thought. The human, he did nothing, and yet he impressed her. Delegates were already in position, their displays more extravagant than the day before. Towering machines spun, illusions floated in midair, and holograms of entire star systems shimmered above the heads of the crowd. Every species had prepared carefully. Every species except one human. Captain Alex Mercer stepped into the hall, calm as ever. His uniform was the same plain gray he had worn yesterday, slightly creased, without decoration or flourish. Other delegates stared. Some shook their heads, some whispered, and some simply laughed. The competition for the day was announced by the Empress herself. She would test each delegation's ability to solve a practical problem, one that combined logic, creativity, and courage. The task was simple in description but impossible in execution, a complex simulation of a planetary disaster. A moon on a collision course with a populated world had to be stopped, using resources provided to each delegation. Each species would have the same equipment, energy conduits, structural elements, and access to a network of interstellar data. Delegates rushed forward. Aliens began calculating, using their immense brains, advanced processors, and telepathic coordination. A collective of octopus-like engineers projected energy shields and calculated trajectories, while a group of winged beings tried to manipulate gravitational fields with gestures that made the air itself shimmer. Every move was precise, every plan calculated to perfection, or so it seemed. Alex, on the other hand, approached the problem differently. He walked to the provided equipment, observing it quietly. While the other delegations argued and debated endlessly over theoretical calculations, he examined the basics. He touched a conduit, tested its limits, and moved pieces into place with simple, logical reasoning. He did not rush. He did not panic. Minutes passed. The alien delegations were in chaos. Some machines sparked and sputtered. A few constructs collapsed entirely under the weight of overcomplicated designs. Arguments erupted as creatures argued over the right way to solve the problem. They had brains capable of handling complex mathematics in microseconds, yet they struggled because their pride and assumptions held them back. Alex, however, progressed steadily. He had no grand design, no complicated calculation running through quantum computers. He simply observed, tested, and adapted. A broken conduit was replaced with another, a misaligned energy panel was adjusted. Step by step, the human solved the problem with what he called common sense. Delegates whispered to each other. He hasn't even tried to impress," a six-limbed creature muttered. "And yet he works faster than all of us." Unlike the other delegations, who tried to dazzle her with spectacle, Alex was solving the problem in plain view without drawing attention. At one point, a particularly complex energy conduit threatened to overload. A delegation of crystalline beings panicked, their entire structure glowing dangerously. Sparks flew, and a small explosion caused part of their setup to collapse. Alex glanced at it, nodded to himself, and carefully rerouted a few simple connections to stabilize it. The crowd gasped. He did not wait for applause. He did not even look at the Empress. He moved on to the next challenge. Time passed quickly. Delegations began to fail spectacularly. Some had relied entirely on brute force, some on theoretical perfection, and others on coordination that could not adapt when variables changed. But Alex adapted constantly. When a floating panel fell, he adjusted it. When a conduit overheated, he improvised a cooling system with available parts. When the simulation introduced a sudden variable, a sudden change in gravity, he found a simple workaround and continued. It was not just skill, it was instinct. Humans, Alex knew, were good at adapting because they could think creatively and act decisively in uncertain situations. No other species in the hall had shown this kind of flexibility. They could calculate, design, and predict, but they could not improvise under pressure as humans did. By the middle of the competition, a sense of tension had grown in the hall. Delegates began watching Alex closely. Some tried to copy his methods. Others whispered to each other in panic. "What is he doing?" they asked. "How is he moving so fast without our precision instruments?" Most delegates had tried to build complex machines, while he simply connected the conduits in a stable, direct line, adjusted the magnetic fields carefully, and reinforced the structure with the beams. The simulation responded immediately. The moon's trajectory began to shift. Energy flowed through the system smoothly without sparks or overheating. The other delegations froze, realizing their grand designs had failed where the human's simple plan worked flawlessly. By the end of the hour, most of the delegations had failed entirely. Some had created massive explosions, others had caused the simulation to collapse. But Alex's solution had stabilized the planetary system. The moon now orbited safely, and the planet below remained untouched. He simply stepped back and watched, quiet, almost modest in his success. The hall erupted, not with applause, but with murmurs of disbelief. Delegates could not understand it. How could one human who had arrived with no display, no showmanship, and no flashy technology succeed where 80,000 others had failed? The Empress rose slowly from her throne, her form glowing brighter. She spoke, her voice carrying across the hall without a sound. "The human has completed the challenge. All others have failed." Her attention rested on Alex. Without grandeur, without spectacle, without trying to impress, he has solved the impossible. He has no devices, no enhancements, no training beyond the human norm, and yet he succeeded. After the announcement, the Empress invited Alex to step forward. He moved carefully, aware of every pair of eyes upon him. Delegates shifted uncomfortably, as if trying to understand how one human could succeed where so many of their elite species had failed. "You," the Empress said, her voice calm but carrying immense weight, "have demonstrated what no other species has. You did not seek to impress. You adapted. You solved the problem. You have shown qualities that are rare in the galaxy: ingenuity, humility, and resilience. Others sought admiration. You sought results. That is the difference between competence and brilliance. Yet here was a single human, unremarkable in appearance, achieving what all their spectacle could not." The remainder of the day passed in a blur for Alex. He moved among the remaining challenges, quietly assisting when necessary, observing the failures of others, and offering minimal guidance only when asked. Delegates became desperate, some trying to mimic his methods, others accusing him of cheating, and some simply sitting in stunned silence, unsure how to proceed. By evening, the Empress called the day's trials to a close. Delegates returned to their quarters, exhausted and frustrated. Alex walked to a quiet balcony overlooking the swirling gases of Clithar, reflecting on the day's events. He had not sought recognition, he had not sought power. He had simply acted with logic, adaptability, and calm focus, qualities humans possessed naturally, though other species often overlooked them. A small voice beside him startled him. A young alien delegate, no taller than a child, peered at him with wide eyes. "Human, how did you do it?" "I did not try to show off. I focused on the problem and worked with what I had." He did not know why, and he did not question it. All he knew was that the game had changed. Delegates who thought themselves unbeatable were beginning to understand that there was something unusual about humans. And Alex Mercer, the quiet human from Earth, had only just begun to show what his species could do. The whispers among the other delegations had grown louder. The human, he did not even try, and yet he succeeded. They shook their heads in disbelief, frustration, and awe. Somewhere, Alex thought, in the vastness of space and among the glittering stars, humans were not meant to rely on spectacle. They thrived on adaptability, creativity, and calm intelligence. And today, the galaxy had received its first clear lesson. The night ended with Alex looking at the stars above Clithar, feeling the weight of the challenge ahead. Tomorrow would bring new trials, more complex than today, but he felt ready. He had no desire to compete for applause. He only sought to do what was right, to solve the impossible, and to show quietly that humans were capable of more than anyone imagined. The next day, the grand hall of the Empress felt different. The whispers had multiplied overnight, growing louder, sharper, and filled with a mixture of fear and fascination. Delegates who had once walked with confident pride now moved carefully, casting sideways glances at the human who had, without ceremony or display, outshone tens of thousands of elite beings. Captain Alex Mercer entered the hall, his uniform still simple, still plain. He carried nothing but a small tool kit and a notebook. Other delegates stared openly, some with envy, some with curiosity, and some with thinly veiled anger. The human's calm demeanor seemed to unsettle them even more than his successes had. He nodded politely to the Empress as he took his place near the back, not trying to take center stage, not trying to show off. The Empress' voice rang out clearly, soft but commanding. Today's challenge is not of raw strength or spectacle. Today, I test your ability to work under pressure, to think in uncertainty, and to act with courage. Your task is to repair a failing satellite network that maintains communications across multiple inhabited worlds. One mistake could isolate entire planets. The equipment is limited. The systems are unstable. You have 2 hours. Many delegates relied on simulations that failed the moment real conditions deviated even slightly. Alex walked to his station and studied the network. The machines hummed and flickered. Thin conduits snaked across the platform like metallic vines. Holographic nodes displayed shifting data streams, and blinking lights indicated warnings. He crouched, touched the nearest panel, and quietly checked the power flow. Too much reliance on perfection, he murmured to himself. Adjust for tolerance, simple fix first. He has no processors, no optimization, no advanced synchronization. This is impossible for him. Meanwhile, the alien delegations were beginning to collapse under pressure. A group of crystalline beings miscalculated a feedback loop, and their main energy node overloaded with a brilliant spark that filled the hall. Screeches and clicks of frustration echoed through the air. Another delegation, a species that lived partially as energy and partially as matter, could not synchronize their telepathic signals under the instability, causing the holographic network to collapse entirely. Alex, unbothered, simply adjusted a few panels, rerouted a conduit, and checked the output. Slowly, carefully, the network began to stabilize. He smiled faintly. Not perfect, he said quietly. Just stable, that's enough. Humans could survive the unpredictable. By the halfway mark, panic was spreading. Delegates shouted at each other, some attempting to blame their neighbors, some retreating to recalibrate machines that had already failed. Several smaller species began collapsing under stress. A few attempted to sabotage competitors, arguing that the human success must be the result of cheating or trickery. Yet even their attempts to interfere were clumsy compared to Alex's calm adjustments. A sudden alarm echoed through the hall. One of the satellite nodes had started a cascading failure. Data streams began flickering. Communications would be lost across multiple worlds if it was not corrected immediately. Delegates froze. They did not know what to do. Alex stepped forward. He assessed the failing node quickly. The others had attempted complex recalibrations which only worsened the situation. Alex's solution was simple. He detached the node, rewired a direct connection to a stable panel, and added a small manual stabilizer from his toolkit. The node hummed back to life. The network stabilized. He had saved multiple worlds in under 5 minutes. The Empress' eyes flickered brighter, her form pulsing softly as she observed him. She said nothing, but her attention was unmistakable. The hall, filled with chatter and panic, seemed to quiet itself as delegates processed what had just happened. A voice hissed nearby. Impossible. How can one human? He acts where we falter. It makes no sense. Most delegations had failed entirely. Some had given up, their pride shattered. Others were scrambling frantically, trying to mimic Alex's methods, but it was too late. Their systems were unstable, overcomplicated, and prone to failure. The Empress floated down from her throne, her form luminous as she observed the human quietly working. You are remarkable. she said softly, though loud enough to carry across the hall. You demonstrate what no other species has shown, the ability to solve problems without fear, without ego, without distraction. That is precisely why you succeed. Others attempt grandeur, display, and spectacle. You act, you solve, you endure. That is the difference between humans and the rest of the galaxy. This human, he is extraordinary, and he has done nothing to show it. Alex approached carefully, testing its components, assessing energy flows, and watching for any sign of instability. Other delegates attempted interference, some out of desperation, some out of envy. They waved their arms, directed energy, or tried to manipulate the node with advanced technology. Sparks flew, systems overloaded, and chaos spread. Alex, in contrast, moved methodically. He traced the circuits, adjusted conduits, and implemented a small stabilizer he had constructed from spare parts. Within minutes, the central node hummed steadily. The entire network, previously unstable and chaotic, was now fully operational. Communications across dozens of worlds were restored. Delegates froze, unsure what to do, as the human quietly stepped back. The hall erupted in stunned silence, followed by murmurs of disbelief. The Empress' voice carried across the hall. The human has succeeded. Every other delegation has failed or produced only partial results. He has demonstrated calmness, ingenuity, and adaptability. He has shown that action, intelligence, and courage outweigh spectacle and pride. I only did what I thought was necessary, he said quietly. The Empress floated down closer to him. Her form shimmered like liquid starlight. Your species is remarkable, she said softly. While others plan, calculate, and display, humans act. They endure, they adapt. You have shown me what the rest of the galaxy has overlooked. Some murmured angrily, some whispered in disbelief, and some began to rethink everything they had ever assumed about humans. As the day ended, Alex stepped out onto a balcony overlooking the swirling gases of Clithar. The sky was filled with stars, the palace glittering in the soft light of distant suns. Delegates moved below, exhausted, frustrated, and awed. A small alien approached, one of the few who had watched him closely throughout the day. Human, how can you be so calm? We panic under pressure. We cannot improvise. How do you do it? Then we have underestimated your species. Adaptable, resourceful, and capable of brilliance without arrogance, and Captain Alex Mercer had just proven it to the galaxy. As night fell over the palace, he reflected on what tomorrow might bring. The challenges would grow more difficult. Competitors would become desperate, and yet he felt ready. He did not need to impress. He only needed to act, to adapt, and to show quietly that humans could thrive where others failed. The whispers of amazement and fear continued long after he had retired to his quarters. The human, he did not even try, and yet he succeeded. One human had succeeded, quietly, calmly, and without a single display of grandeur. That human was Alex Mercer. Captain Alex stepped into the hall, as he always did, carrying nothing except his small toolkit and a quiet confidence. He did not bow to anyone, did not wave to the crowd, and did not attempt to attract attention, and yet all eyes found him. Whispers followed him through the polished floors. He is here, one alien said in a trembling voice, the human who outshines us all without trying. Communication, logistics, and action must all be coordinated perfectly, or disaster will follow. You have 3 hours. Every species was desperate to regain honor, and some even considered sabotage. Alex, as always, walked calmly to his station. He observed the simulation for a moment, letting the chaos of the hall wash around him. His approach was simple: first understand the problem, then adapt to it, then act decisively. He did not panic. He did not calculate the impossible. He focused only on what could be done. The first part of the simulation was a natural disaster. A violent solar flare threatened the communications satellites that kept multiple inhabited planets connected. Delegates scrambled, sending drones, redirecting energy, and shouting to coordinate systems that were already overloaded. Some failed spectacularly, their machinery sparking and failing. Others argued endlessly over who should act first. Alex crouched at his station, adjusting a simple energy conduit and redirecting a small power source to stabilize the satellites. Where other species had created massive, overcomplicated structures, his solution was elegant and minimal. Slowly, one by one, the satellites stabilized. The Empress' eyes flickered with curiosity and approval. Next came a second challenge, a sudden outbreak of civil unrest on one of the planets in the simulation. Delegates were expected to coordinate relief efforts, deploy assistance, and restore order without causing further panic. Many species attempted to solve the problem with overwhelming force, relying on military technology or psychic influence. Predictably, their efforts escalated the situation. Riots worsened. The simulation showed chaos spreading. Alex approached calmly. He observed, asked questions, and used the limited resources provided in a practical way. He did not attempt to control the population through power or intimidation. Instead, he prioritized communication, understanding, and strategic placement of resources. Slowly, the unrest began to subside. The simulation stabilized again. Delegates watched in disbelief. Some whispered angrily to each other. "It cannot be," a crystalline being said. "He does not even use advanced computation. He does not manipulate energy with precision. And yet he succeeds where we fail." Alex moved forward, examining the data and testing the instruments manually. He did not rely on overcomplicated theories. He understood gravity, energy flow, and basic physics, and he combined them with observation and intuition. Within minutes, he identified the instability and adjusted the orbits of the planets using simple, practical solutions, redirecting minor energy flows, stabilizing key points, and monitoring results carefully. The simulation responded immediately. Orbital paths corrected, planets stabilized. Worlds that were about to collide now continued safely in their paths. Delegates froze, unable to believe what they were seeing. One by one, they realized that their sophisticated devices and complex calculations had failed, while a single human working calmly and practically had succeeded. By the halfway point, chaos had become widespread among the other delegates. Some were shouting at each other. Some were attempting desperate improvisation. Others were openly accusing one another of sabotage. None could understand the human. None could anticipate his actions. He was calm, methodical, and effective, with no need for display or grandeur. The Empress floated closer to observe. Her light shimmered across the hall as she studied Alex. "You do not seek recognition," she said softly, her voice carrying to him clearly. "You act, you adapt. You solve, that is why you succeed. Others fail because they cannot move beyond pride and expectation." A few attempted to combine their methods in desperation, but only created more instability. Alex approached, calmly examining the affected nodes. He disconnected a damaged conduit, replaced it with a simple stabilizer, and rerouted power through a less complex path. The network hummed back to life. Delegates watched in stunned silence. The final stage of the simulation was a test of leadership, coordinating multiple delegations to respond simultaneously to a crisis that spanned several star systems. Alien leaders argued, disagreed, and often refused to cooperate. Communication networks were overloaded. Tensions ran high. Alex took a deep breath. He moved among the stations, quietly observing the failures and identifying simple ways to stabilize each node. He asked concise, clear questions, listened carefully, and suggested adjustments that could be implemented immediately. Delegates reluctantly followed, surprised by his clarity and focus. Slowly, under his calm guidance, the chaotic simulation began to stabilize. The Empress' attention remained on him. She had observed his quiet leadership from the beginning. While other species had tried to dominate, to impress, or to intimidate, Alex had acted with logic, courage, and humility. He had inspired cooperation not through force, but through calm competence. By the end of the simulation, every system was stable. Communications were restored. Civil unrest subsided. Planetary orbits had corrected themselves. The solar storm's effects had been mitigated. Every challenge had been met, not by spectacle or show, but by calm, steady human ingenuity. Delegates were exhausted, frustrated, and awed. Some bowed in disbelief. Others whispered anxiously among themselves. Many began to question their assumptions about humans. "He did not even try to impress," one said, "and yet he has outdone all of us." That is a quality rare in the galaxy, and it is why he surpasses even the most advanced species. And yet one human who had not tried to impress anyone had outshone them all. As the hall emptied, Alex stepped onto a balcony overlooking the swirling gases of Clithar. The stars sparkled above, distant but familiar, reminding him of home. He did not feel pride. He felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had done what needed to be done, and that his actions had spoken louder than any display or machine could. Nearby, a young delegate approached him hesitantly. "Human, how do you remain calm under such pressure?" "That is all." Perhaps humans had a strength that no species had anticipated. The Empress watched from her throne, her eyes fixed on Alex. Her expression was unreadable, yet it radiated approval. She had seen hundreds of species attempt to impress her. Tens of thousands had tried to win her favor through spectacle and power. And yet this human, who had done nothing of the sort, had demonstrated qualities far beyond the reach of even the most advanced civilizations. Alex did not see the Empress gaze as he looked at the stars. He only thought about the challenges yet to come. He knew the trials would grow harder, more dangerous, and more complex. But he also knew that humans, with their adaptability, creativity, and calm intelligence, could face any challenge the galaxy presented. And for the first time, he realized that the galaxy was beginning to notice humans, not as a primitive species, not as an insignificant one, but as a force capable of surprising even the most advanced civilizations. The night fell over Clithar, casting the grand hall in deep, glittering shadows. Alex Mercer, the quiet human from Earth, stood on the balcony, ready for whatever came next. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to understand that humans could succeed without trying to impress, thrive under pressure, and lead when others failed. The whispers of the delegates echoed in the corridors long after he had returned to his quarters. The human, he did not even try, and yet he leads, he solves, he succeeds. Delegates moved with quiet tension, their pride fractured, their confidence shaken. For 3 days they had watched the human, Captain Alex Mercer, succeed where they had failed. They had planned, calculated, and displayed every imaginable marvel, yet it was the human, quiet and unassuming, who had outperformed all 80,000 competitors. Alex stepped into the hall as always, his uniform plain, his demeanor calm. He carried nothing except his small toolkit and a keen focus. He had no intention of impressing anyone, yet all eyes found him immediately. Some stared in disbelief, others in envy, and a few could not hide the seeds of respect growing within them. The Empress rose slowly from her floating throne. Her luminous form pulsed gently with energy, casting shimmering reflections across the hall. "Delegates," she said, her voice both soft and commanding, "you have watched the human act without spectacle, without pride, and without pretense. Today's challenge is the final test. You will face a problem that requires intellect, diplomacy, courage, and adaptability. A new threat has appeared in a previously unexplored sector, a sentient anomaly capable of destabilizing entire star systems. You must devise a solution that protects life, preserves order, and secures the galaxy's future. You have 4 hours." Delegates rushed to their stations, pulling out machines that bent energy to their will, psychic networks capable of predicting outcomes, and fleets designed to obliterate threats before they could act. Everyone had a plan, everyone except the human. Alex walked to his station and observed the anomaly through the simulation interface. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. A swirling mass of energy, shifting in ways that defied physics as most species knew it. Tentacles of light extended and contracted unpredictably, reacting violently to every action attempted by the other delegations. Other species panicked. Their machines sparked. Their psychic networks failed to predict outcomes. Coordinated fleets collided in the simulation. Chaos spread rapidly. Delegates shouted, argued, and gestured wildly, trying to force a solution that could not be forced. Alex remained calm. He crouched, studying the anomaly's movements, patterns, and energy pulses. Unlike other species, he did not attempt brute force. He did not try to overwhelm it with technology or psychic might. He focused on observation, deduction, and practical action. Minutes passed. Delegates continued to fail spectacularly, and some began blaming one another. Their plans were too rigid, too reliant on calculations, too constrained by expectation. Alex, in contrast, moved steadily. He made small adjustments to the simulation interface, rerouted minor energy flows, and created a stabilizing field using a combination of simple principles and careful improvisation. Slowly, the anomaly's violent behavior began to subside. Where other species had caused explosions, the human had stabilized it. Where their fleets had collided, Alex's simple adjustments had redirected energy safely. Where their machines had failed, his methodical approach had restored balance. The Empress observed closely. Her luminous form shimmered brighter, pulsing with what seemed like approval. She had watched countless delegations attempt feats of brilliance. Some had destroyed worlds in simulations. Others had created wonders that bent reality itself, and yet none had adapted under pressure like this human. None had combined logic, courage, and calm decision-making to succeed where every other species had failed. By the halfway point, the anomaly had stabilized, but it was not yet neutralized. Alex moved to the final stage. He understood the anomaly's behavior better than any other species. Its movements were unpredictable, yes, but patterns existed within the chaos, subtle repetitions, energy flows that could be guided. He began implementing a gentle method of containment, not force, not domination, but guidance. Delegates watched, bewildered. Some attempted to mimic his methods, but it was too late. Their machines were overloaded, their psychic networks confused. Only Alex's calm, step-by-step adjustments worked. Time passed. The anomaly's energy pulses slowed. It began to settle, following the patterns Alex subtly guided it through. Systems across multiple planets stabilized. Communications were restored. Lives were preserved. The threat that had seemed unstoppable was neutralized, not through overwhelming power, but through quiet intelligence and adaptability. The hall fell silent. Even the most arrogant delegates were forced to stare in disbelief. 80,000 beings had tried to impress. One human who had done nothing of the sort had succeeded. Not through power, not through spectacle, not through intimidation, but through human ingenuity. The Empress floated down from her throne, her form glowing with energy. "Captain Alex Mercer," she said, her voice carrying across the hall with undeniable authority, "you have succeeded where every other species has failed. You have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and humility. You have led not through dominance, but through action and adaptation. You have shown qualities that the galaxy has overlooked for too long." "I only did what needed to be done," he said quietly. The Empress, eyes luminous and deep, studied him. "That is precisely why you succeeded. Others sought attention, accolades, and recognition. You sought solutions. You acted, adapted, and preserved life where others failed. That is the human way. Let all beings here understand. A species that seems small, unremarkable, or simple may possess qualities no machine, psychic, or fleet can match. Courage, adaptability, ingenuity, and humility, these are the traits that define true strength. And today, one human has proven them. Now they had witnessed firsthand that humans could surpass even the most advanced civilizations in creativity, problem-solving, and leadership. The Empress continued, her voice resonant and clear. "Captain Alex Mercer, you are hereby appointed as my human envoy and advisor to the Intergalactic Council. You will represent Earth, not because of wealth, power, or technology, but because your species embodies qualities that cannot be measured or manufactured. Qualities that the galaxy needs now more than ever." A few could not hide the spark of fear. Humans, it seemed, were not to be underestimated. Alex nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will serve with integrity and do my best. The galaxy will learn from you, and through you, it may yet survive the challenges to come." Outside the grand hall, the swirling gases of Clithar reflected the early morning sun. Ships from countless species hovered quietly, as if in reverence. Word would spread quickly. A human had succeeded where all others had failed. A human had led. A human had saved lives and stabilized threats that had seemed impossible. A young alien delegate approached Alex hesitantly. "Human, I do not understand. How can you achieve so much without trying to impress?" Around them, whispers continued. "The human, he did not even try, and yet he leads, he succeeds, he preserves life. Not weak, not primitive, but capable of extraordinary achievement through qualities that could not be measured or replicated easily." In his quarters, Alex gazed out at the stars. Earth felt distant, yet familiar. He thought of the millions of humans back home, none of whom could imagine the scene he had just witnessed. He thought of the challenges yet to come, knowing that the galaxy was larger, stranger, and more dangerous than any single human or species could anticipate. And yet he was ready. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds, adapted to environments that no other species could endure, and solved problems that seemed impossible. This was their strength. And today, in front of 80,000 delegates and the Empress of the Galaxy, Alex Mercer had shown it clearly. The whispers that echoed through the palace were no longer of disbelief or anger. They were a mixture of awe, respect, and a quiet acknowledgement. Humans could succeed where others failed. Humans could lead, adapt, and endure. Humans could, without trying, change the course of the galaxy. And as the day drew to a close, with the stars above Clithar sparkling like a million tiny eyes, Alex Mercer felt a quiet satisfaction. Not pride, not triumph. Only the knowledge that he had done what was necessary, that humans, unassuming and often underestimated, had proven their worth once again. The Empress watched silently from her throne, knowing that the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. One human who had not sought recognition had outshone 80,000 elite beings. One human who had acted calmly, adapted quickly, and solved impossible problems had changed the way the galaxy would view Earth forever. The message was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were not primitive. They were capable of greatness beyond imagination. And the galaxy would learn, slowly but surely, that when humans acted, even without trying, remarkable things could happen. The final whispers floated through the palace corridors, reaching every corner. The human, he did not even try, and yet he has won the respect of the Empress and the galaxy.